If you had some kind of dashboard and you got to pick three pieces of data on that dashboard to look at the economy, to understand what's happening in society, what three would you pick?
I think if there was a way that you could measure it, and I think there is through Gallup and whatnot, but it would be public trust in institutions,
Hmm.
particularly news media, government, and probably just that. Yeah, just news media and government. If you could track that over time, and obviously as those decline, society's fracturing. Pretty simple. And as those increase, and if you go back to the 50s and 60s, trust in the news media and the federal government incredibly high. I think if you go back to the 60s, the polls that were taken of do you trust the federal government to do the right thing? That's kind of the broad question that got asked, was like 70, 80%. Whereas today it's 15 or 20%. It's a completely different world. So that would be that. I think that's a broad metric that I think encapsulates a lot of what's going on. It encapsulates what's going on in the economy, what's going on in politics, what's going on in education. It kind of captures just a lot of moods that people have. When things are breaking, they just start to not trust the big institutions that are integral for society.
Yeah, a big debate at the dinner table the other night was, say that you have some kind of efficient frontier. Would you rather have coherence of that sort of three media channels, two newspapers in every city, but we all sort of march to the beat of the same drum, but we give up some truth? So you have coherence but less truth, or truth but less coherence. And if you take right now that we actually have more truth with the ways that things that were used to be covered up have now been exposed, but then we have less coherence. We were debating which one we thought was better. And I actually made the argument here that I think that a society, one of the big things that like I always think of like the future past, like in the future, what will we think of the present? And I wonder if one of them is that we overestimated the benefits to a society of truth and underestimated the benefits of coherence.
I think that's probably right. I guess the way to phrase that, and this is not rhetorical, I don't know the answer to this, but was people's cohesion in the 1950s and 60s, was that driven by ignorance? Is that
Hmm.
why because they just didn't understand the other side? I don't know the answer to that question. Maybe, but there probably is some degree of that. I've always thought that there's this irony of the internet, kind of the modern media age, where it is harder to hide behind a lie than ever before because you'll be exposed instantly. Someone will find out what's going on. It's harder to hide behind bad practices than ever before, but it's easier to spread a lie than ever before. I don't
Hmm.
know how to reconcile that contradiction. Harder to hide behind a lie, easier to spread a lie. But you see both of those things. I've written about this in an article of all these examples of like cold murder cases that sat dormant for 30 years and the best detectives could not figure that out, and then someone posted on Facebook and it's solved in 24 hours. Like there's so many things of just like exactly what you would expect when you bring people together, billions of people online. They're gonna you can figure things out a lot greater than if you just have two guys talking to each other over the phone. So that you would expect that, but you would also know, on the other hand, the rise of bad information, fake information, in whatever context it is greater than it probably ever has before. So I never know how to reconcile those two, but it's kind of like the barbell approach of what's happening in media. That's difficult to reconcile. So yeah, it just comes back to wondering if people's cohesion was driven by ignorance that we don't have anymore. We're better informed today. There's this great quote from Benedict Evans who says, I might butcher this, but he says, the more the internet exposes people to new points of view, the angrier people get that different views exist. And I think that's exactly what's happening. It's now that we are exposed to how other people live, we kind of get angry that other people live differently than us. And maybe the ignorance that took place in other eras was kind of a calming effect because you could just pretend, you could assume that other people lived just like you did, even though they obviously didn't.